Syracuse Central School District Board of Education to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to begin with a moment of silence for the following. Joanne Marsh, a former employee of the North Syracuse Central School District. Robert Perrine, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Vincent Marcosia, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. And Heather Champion, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Thank you. We'll begin with a proclamation this evening. It's for food staff, district food service staff. So I'm going to read that. The North Syracuse Central School District food service staff have contributed to the health and educational development of our district's children by making nutritious breakfasts and lunches to help students improve grades, increase attention, improve tardy rates, and improve behavior. The food service staff continues to make positive changes in order to provide nutritional meals that meet the dietary guidelines for Americans and are a dedicated group of professionals. To honor the food service staff of the North Syracuse Central School District and their accomplishments, on behalf of the children who attend our schools, I, Paul Farfalia, President of the Board of the North Syracuse Central School District, and on behalf of the board, express our deepest gratitude and proclaim the week of October 3rd through October 7th, 2022 as Food Service Appreciation Week to be celebrated with appropriate educational activities. So I make the motion to declare that. Look for a second from Mr. Crabtree. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Thank you. We have some folks here.
What we'll do, we'll have Mr. Keegan accept this on behalf of food service. Mr. Keegan, thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass these on.
Favor.
Thank you. Take those.
All right, we're going to begin with our independent audit report. So when you're ready, Mr. Lisson, where is he? He's right back here. He's going to go over the information, and you all have a folder in front of you that he put on board table this evening. All right, thanks everybody for having us back. Michael Son, Rosie St. Laurel partner. I've been with you guys for a number of years. Actually, David Galante, my senior manager, works closely with you on the job. So we've been working with you guys for about 2 or 3 weeks doing the audit. So this is kind of the conclusion of the audit, high level summary, shared with you the results of that audit. So first thing is executive summary, which is basically is high-level summary of responsibilities that we have to walk through the board and the audit committee. The audit committee a couple weeks ago, walk through this in greater detail. So any, we can answer any questions. Could you press a button on your mic for us?
Oh, green.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Want me to go back and retalk?
Nope.
He's usually loud enough. Oh,
Yep.
okay.
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 So Jamie, want to start off?
Absolutely. So the most important thing that we're here to say to everyone tonight is that our opinion on the district-wide financial statements is an unmodified opinion. So that is best case scenario. It's a clean opinion. It's what you want to hear. And if that weren't the case, that would have been communicated far before today's date. So one item that you have in your packets is the draft financial statements. I think it's about 66 pages or so, lengthy reading material. Pretty consistent information in there. The biggest change that you will see if you were to compare it to last year's financial statements, our opinion, which is the first 3 pages, is drastically different than opinions in the past. There was a new audit standard that we had to adopt this year that really changed the form and content of our opinion. And what it did is provide some clarity. It put the opinion right up top, can't miss it. And then it provided more information on just the audit responsibilities and management's responsibilities, just to make it more clear, that information. So that's really the biggest change that you'll see in the financials that you have in front of you.
It's the first change in probably over 20 years in an audit opinion. So it's supposed to make it easier to understand. So if anybody here reads it and doesn't understand it, let me know and I'll help explain. So what they try to do is redefine stuff to make it easier for the average person to understand. Because a lot of times we talk in very technical terms, and I think what they try to do is say, hey, this is what the audit is. It kind of explains the responsibilities, both management and our responsibilities. It kind of makes it in more layman's terms. So.
And in terms of the governance communications, these were all communicated with the audit committee. But again, we talk about our audit responsibility, which is to provide an opinion on the financial statements. The financial statements are management's responsibility. We had no difficulties, disagreements. We had no identified or suspected fraud. No other issues. We had no changes in accounting policies. We did evaluate the new lease standard this year, and worked lengthy with BOCES, the district, to determine whether that should be implemented. And we had no significant management journal entries, adjustments that needed to be made as well. I don't know if you want to talk more about the lease standard.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time working through there's a new accounting standard called the leases for governmental clients. So basically what this is, sometimes you have to put assets on your books that are related to leases. That's probably the first change in over 40 plus years. So overall, big scheme of things, what happened is the overall impact to the school district was actually immaterial. What we're going to have to pay attention to going forward as you enter to new leases, you might have an asset and liability in the books that has historically never been there in the past. In the past, it's always been disclosed in a footnote. So all our school districts had adopted as of June 30th this year. So, we work very closely with Don and Vince, his entire team, walking through the analysis. We actually started with this analysis back in March, well before the end of the year. We're well in front of it. So we were really comfortable with the approach we took and the estimates and everything, working with his team. So great job. So.
And in terms of any control observations and recommendations that would be communicated in a management letter, we had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. That's important to note. Just some administrative recommendations. We're required to let you know that the general fund balance exceeded 4%. Just a requirement for us to let you know. It was 4.95%. Very, very slight. Silly to bring up, certainly in the times that we're in, but it's more of a compliance finding than something that we're concerned with. And then our second comment is just updating government-wide financial ledgers. So I think we've talked for years about implementing some of the government-wide trial balances in the system for fixed assets and long-term liabilities. And our recommendation this year is just to make sure they're continually updated throughout the year with all of the supporting documentation.
Any questions so far? All right, continue on to the executive summary a little bit. And to talk about some of the big hitting numbers on the financial statement. So what this slide talks about is your pension, your retirement plans, both your teacher systems and the employee system. You can see what's interesting. If you look at the slide, you can see the brackets is actually a liability. $10 million last year was the proportionate share that the school district shared. This year is an asset of $67 million. What that really represents is, you can see some of the highlights I put below, is the system, meaning the pension system that you belong to, or your teachers belong to, and employees. They had about a 29% return last year, and on the employee side, about 33%. So that actually basically shows that the plan is actually very well funded, fully funded. And you can see the average return here is about 9.2% versus 9.19. So it shows that both pension plans are very well funded, and the district makes contributions on an annual basis based on an actuary. And what this represents is the ultimate asset or liability of how much they funded it on a long-term basis. We have another slide a little bit after this showing how other states kind of, look against, us, and you'll see the difference in the next slide. This is actually a very interesting slide. It shows that as you guys pay into the system, New York State, in comparison to some of the other largest states out there, is about 113% funded, which is actually over 100%, meaning good. All the states kind of approved because they're all same measurement dates as of June 30th, but you can see going back, all the large systems out there, is New York's done the best of keeping as fully funded as possibly can. So promises, the benefits that are promised to the teachers and employees is fully funded across. You can see like Illinois has always done the worst and owned about 45% of the promise that, hopefully taxpayers in that state and or legislation in that state would have to help fund that. So that shows how well, the system is funded from your standpoint, and that proportionate asset is on your books, that I talked about in the previous slide. This guy here, the $67 million. That's why you're part of that $130 billion of funded liability here. So.
But again, Mike, just, I'm a little preemptive, defense. It's going to look very different next year. I mean, there's always a lag because we're looking at the numbers, fiscal
About a
year
year
21.
past, 1 year behind.
Yeah. And that's a GASB thing. This have to show the asset on the book, and we'll have to show it next year regardless of what it is. And it's going to look like a liability.
Yeah, it could. It depends how the market swings.
Yeah.
We know the market swung downwards quite a bit as of
Right,
June
but
30th.
The 22 numbers were done June 30th. So that's just that there's a lag with their, yeah. So that I'll bring that up next year.
Yep.
Okay.
I would be shocked if they.
Good
both
news
weren't.
now, but it'll still be fine, but yeah.
Yeah, when you look back at it, this was a unique year to have a 29% return. That's why I highlighted that a little bit specific, because if you look at the 30-year average, it's only 9%. Last year alone, they had 29%. So that really helps from the actual funding. So when that swings backwards to more long-term, the 9%, the asset will probably drop down to almost break even where it was in the past, meaning not 113%. So. It gives you a little perspective there. I'll have Jamie talk about the OPEB a little bit. So what this is all about.
Yeah, so OPEB is your post-employment benefits. So it's the benefits that you are committed to pay your employees post-retirement. So if you look at the historical comparison here, $355 million liability in 2022, drastically different from 430 million in 2021. Again, it's based on the discount rate that's used. It's based on the assumptions, the investment return. And what's important to note here is similar to the TRS plan, this is updated every other year. So there's a full valuation done based on the district census of employees, retirement dates, birth dates, all that demographic information. It's done every other year. And so this year was an update year. So that information is almost rolled forward. And the biggest change this year was the change in the discount rate that was used. It decreased to about, was it 2 point? It increased to 3.54. Sorry, it went from 2.16. So it increased what ended up decreasing your liability significantly. So again, this is something that you don't have much control over other than the retirement benefits that you choose to provide. But what the valuation is measured at is done by your actuaries. And this gets put on your government-wide statements.
What this basically represents, 354 million, is the long-term liability to pay benefits both on current employees and retirees are already, receiving benefits. So what this is as of today, how much it would have to, fund a plan, $354 million. The theory is that's how much it's going to cost you long-term, barring any changes to health rates, contracts, all that stuff could change this number exponentially. So basically this is the long-term promise for the retiree benefits. And it decreased primarily just because of assumptions and actuarial sciences this year.
Is it just my thoughts? Is it okay? I have always considered that a number that GASB designed. What is it? Number 74. I don't know which one. When it was
75 was
75.
45,
45,
jumped
yeah.
up to 75.
Yeah. That is a number that's never going to be reached.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, I mean, I say that because again, they're requiring us to show on the books a number that really is not, it's just not feasible that we
Yeah, you
reach
don't have
that.
to fund it in cash. The state of New York does not even
Mhm.
require you to fund it in
Right.
cash.
I just want people to know that because it
Yeah.
looks like we have
You don't
this
have to
big,
find $354 million.
No, you're not getting a bill.
You're not getting a bill. But this is the long-term estimate that says how much it would cost based on, inflation, all kinds of stuff they build into their models to say, the current benefits. So.
I just think it's important that we all realize that it's not a number we're expected to reach. And it's, as you said, it's actuarially projected. We get a little inflation. We have a bump up in the assumption
Yeah.
rate or discount rate, and that looks good.
That looks
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I think the next section here, the general fund, as Jamie could talk about, is really where the school district kind of runs their business. This is where you traditionally, budget your business around. I'll say your business, I mean, the school district as a whole. But Jamie, want to touch on the general fund real quick?
Yeah, so this is the information that you're used to talking about routinely, and it's not some of those far reach liabilities. So the general fund revenues this year, about $173.7 million, expenses of about $170 million. So again, a strong revenue position here. What affected this year's bottom line was interfund transfers. So about $6 million were transferred out. It was a net number there, for a net decrease of about $2.6 million this year. So that interfund transfer is important to note that that's related to a $6 million transfer for capital projects in the current year, for voter approved capital projects. So a little bit of a unique situation here. So when you look at the net decrease in your fund balance, it looks like you operated a loss position, but that $6 million was in your reserve built up funding. It's important to know that you had a strong positive year of your revenues this year over your expenses.
Your capital reserves are built up in the past years, and as you release them, they get transferred over. So it shows an expense in the general fund and the capital projects funds, except as revenue.
One thing that's important to note with expenses here of 170 million, a lot of those expenses are lower or decreased this year due to cost savings in the general fund for some of the federal grants, the COVID relief grants that you received this year. There was about $6 million that was spent uniquely in the federal fund for those grants, for salaries, benefits, a lot of costs that normally would have run through your general fund. So that helped a lot this year.
Very strong year.
Mhm.
In the big scheme of things, very strong year. As Jamie said, audit went extremely well. We spent a lot of time, auditing the different funds, the general fund, and the other funds. So just hats off to the entire team. You have a very large school district, a lot of numbers, a lot of, unique stuff going on. Just great job overall. We kind of touched base in the observations, recommendations already a little bit. So I think the last slide is just a really high level summary.
So each year we perform 3 audits for the district. We do the district-wide financial statement audit that we just touched on. We also audit the single audit or the federal grants. So that's the federal expenditures of the district for the year. This year we had 2 major programs. So what that means is there were 2 federal grants that we specifically picked based on an analysis of the risk assessments, the costs in the grants. And our major programs was Education Stabilization Fund. So that is the government's term for all of the COVID relief funds that you receive. They're all under one umbrella. So that's your ESSER, your GEAR, the
ARPA.
yeah, all of them.
All
They're all
put
together.
together.
They're all together in there. So that was about $6 million this year that was spent on those funds. Last year, that was about 1.4 million. So you'll see there was a really large increase in those funds. And the second program that we tested is the Special Education Cluster, that's also known as IDEA. That was tested because it was last tested in 2019. We're required to evaluate programs of a certain dollar amount every 3 years to ensure that they're evaluated and tested, and we had no findings. So what's important to note here is we give an opinion on major program compliance, making sure that you are charging only allowable costs, that the activities that you're using the funds for are allowable under the grant terms, that they're in the period that you're allowed to use them, that you're following all of your reporting guidelines. And it's important to note that we didn't have any findings with either of these programs. And education stabilization is brand new. It's new to the district, certainly has a lot of different components. It's many different grants within there that each have their own requirements and regulations. And so to bring those funds in at various points during the year, I think some of the grants were approved in January, and to be able to kind of roll with the punches, file everything and business as usual is really important. And I think that speaks to the business office.
Yeah, they have no compliance findings critical, because a compliance finding in our world means you're going to be refunding money back to the state of New York. So when we look at stuff, I always tell my school districts, I'd never want to see you have to refund money back because you couldn't follow the simple rule of a yes, no, follow compliance. We worked with you a number of years, and even with the new programs, as Jamie pointed out, they've done a great job of complying with all the regulations and rules. It's a little different than a financial audit. We're actually looking at compliance of the rule says do A, B, and C. You got to do A, B, and C. If you don't comply, you might have to refund money. So it's excellent to see that you have $14+ million of, federal grants coming through, and we've audited, quite a bit of that, almost 8 million of it. It should have nothing to have to, be written up as a question cost is excellent. So it just shows for your folks all running the programs, not just the finance folks, but other folks that are underneath that. They do a great job.
And as Mike mentioned, total federal expenditures are about almost $15 million. Last year, they were only 7.3 million. The COVID funds are the big driver there, but also child nutrition was also up almost $3 million. The big driver there was really the fact that you still had free lunches available to all participants, and it was almost a return to a more normal pre-pandemic volume of meals served, which generated a higher reimbursement for you. So these might be unique items that, as some of the COVID monies are expended in kind of dry up, that we would see federal expenditures shrink back to normal levels. The last audit that we do is extra classroom activities. That's the audit that we perform over all of the student clubs and their funding. And I know we talk about this every year. The opinion that we give on this audit is a little bit different from the audit of the financial statements. It's modified for a scope limitation just over the cash receipts. And that is for a standard opinion that's issued to all school districts, given what it is. It's really cash. It's a lot of cash that we can't. We can tell you how much cash was in the bank. What we can't tell you is how much cash should have been in the bank. So this is not unique to North Syracuse. This is for all school districts. So it does not mean that there is something to be concerned about here. Absolutely.
This has always been like this, like you say, other school districts and our school district, but we have Mike Lucia from CNS Business Department, who yearly does a presentation for all the clubs. But to let the audience know, the advisors do not do the work. It's the students that keep track of. I have trouble with my own bank book, so God bless our children, so this comes up every year, but it's based on our students and how they handle the receipts and so forth. So thank you.
And we've seen vast improvement, and from a comparison to other school districts, you guys are really good shape in comparison. And we have other school districts that post-it notes become the records. We don't
Yes.
have that. I don't mind a good post-it note once in a while.
And there is a large volume. I mean, there was $266,000 of cash receipts that ran through the clubs this year. So there's, just for reference, the year started with about 335,000, pulled in about 266. The club spent about 242. So we ended at about 359,000. So there was a higher volume of transactions going on this year, as you would expect. 2020 was significantly reduced with the school closures. I think there was a lot more that was ramped up in 2021, more dances, in-person events, fundraisers. And so what we found was, yes, there was slightly higher sample of cash receipts that were missing documentation, but there was a lapse in, the year that took place. People weren't, I'm sure, getting back into controls, the swing of things. And a lot of what we were missing support for were dances, musical shows. It's hard to keep track when you're selling tickets, so one thing we just recommend is using pre-numbered tickets. It's a little bit more stable than a summary of tickets provided. Gives a little bit more support there, but there isn't anything that we saw that would make us concerned. It's something that every district works on. And like Mike said, in comparison, it's a very large operation. It is the students that are doing the work and the documentation, and it is really well done.
That's all we had.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will be accepting this audit later in the day, as well as the management response letter or action plan that you'll see on the agenda. Thank you. Okay, next we have a special education presentation. So Ms. DeFlorio, it's yours when you're ready.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Thank you for having us here. With me tonight is Janet Brefka, Director of Special Education, and our newest member to our office, Julie Darmody-Latha. So we're going to go through our special education presentation. And again, always, if you guys have questions as we go through, please just ask, and we'll try to answer them for you. Okay, so, well, this is a roll, not a click. All right, I'll try not to make you guys too sick on the roll. All right, so our philosophy, as you can see right here, is that, and I think we've been pretty clear with this throughout the years, is that special education students are general education students first, and that they receive special education as a service. We definitely like to say that special education, it's the service, it's not the location. And we really have been, throughout the years that I've been here, really trying to push this mantra, so that we know that we kind of do this a lot. You know, we'll say that special education is equal to general ed. We work tandemly with them. So sometimes people are like, oh, we've got to get them up to here, but we can't get them to here unless we're here with general education. So we really try to push that as we go through. So that's our philosophy. The continuum of services. So again, we try to put this in here. We did this last time we were here too, just so that everybody's aware. So when we're looking at the continuum, we're making sure that we start with the least restrictive to the student's maximum extent possible. So it's always important to make sure that it's the student's needs that are being met in the least restrictive environment for that particular child. And then when we're placing them together, we're always looking at their academic achievement, their social, physical, and management needs. So then we're starting out with consultant teacher direct services. So basically what we're looking at is the special education teacher providing specially designed instruction to the students with disabilities while they're in the general education setting. So this is not a pull-out model. This is definitely a push-in service. We have this throughout the district. And just so some of the criteria underneath, as you'll see right there, cannot exceed 20 students to that teacher while they're in that instructional setting. We have to make sure that there's 2 hours per week that they're getting. And again, we have these throughout the district K through 12. We spent a lot of time last year kind of talking about our CTD classes. And this time I thought we'd focus a little bit on our special classes. So these are for students who have risen through the educational settings and realize that their setting requires a more direct instruction from a special education teacher in a special class setting. These are students who spend the majority of their time out of the general education setting. And it's based upon their levels of academic or educational achievement, their levels of social development, physical development, and management needs. What we do is we make sure that their instruction is primarily given through their special education teacher. And then we look for ways to have these students participate in the general education setting once their needs are met by their special education teacher in their special class setting. And what those classes would be composed of are 811 and 1211. And it gives a description right next to it so that you can see how that these are broken down. So our 811 classes would be for students that are our smallest size special classes. And these are for our students whose management needs are pretty intense and that they receive the most significant amount of attention and interventions. This classroom used to be housed at Lakeshore. For those of you who have been around a while, this program used to be out at Lakeshore. And what we found is that the bus ride out to the furthest spot in the district really created a lot of problems. So we've been fortunate to bring it more centrally located, and it's now housed at Allen Road. This classroom feeds to our 1211 program at Roxborough Road Middle. And because we look at things developmentally, we usually start with our smallest age students, youngest age students with the most support. And then as they get older, you'll see that it's 1211. And the reason is as they get older and they're developing coping strategies, we can increase the class size because their needs get met, there's less need for support in those classroom settings. And then this class also then feeds to the junior high and then the high school. We also have, which was formerly known as 12-1-4, which is now 12-1 plus 3-1. And these are for students whose needs are, with severe multiple disabilities that primarily consist, you can see that, of habilitation and treatment. And we do not exceed 12. This program has been at Roxelle, I think, since even before I got here. So you're talking longer than 18 years. And this classroom also feeds to Rox Middle. And then we used to have a program at the high school, but now we feed right directly to CNS. And then our 15-1 classes, which we have 3 at three at Smith Road. And then we feed to Gillette. We have 2 at Gillette, 2 at the high school, and then 3 more at CNS. Or I'm sorry, 2 at the junior high. Thank you. Thanks, Janet. 3 at the high school. So as you can see, we have a huge gamut of the continuum within our special classes in our district. I think it's important for everybody to understand how we place in some of these programs. So when we're looking at students who are going more restrictive, so if a student is in the district and they're in a general education, like a CTD classroom, and we're looking to go to a special class, these are the steps that we would take as we look to see how would a student get placed to go more restrictive. So what we're talking about is student who is in general education 80% or more of their day. What would that look like if we had to go into a special class? So what we would look for if a student needs to go into more of a behavioral type of setting, which would be our 8-1-1 classroom or our 12-1-1 classroom, even sometimes some of our 15-1 kids, we're always looking to see, do they warrant a functional behavioral analysis, a behavior plan? But we also have to have data that backs that up. And we're looking at a lot of data collection to ensure that that student is really being supported prior to moving out of their setting. And then we also make sure that the school psychologists from both buildings collaborate, and they look at the student, they review the student, attend a CSE meeting, and then that move is made. And it's nice to have Julie here because that was kind of the same process that we did if we had to move a student towards BOCES. So she's kind of familiar with that process, and it's the same process that we would make if we had to move a child to a BOCES program. Any questions on this? Okay. Just some current numbers, just to show you some data. We currently have about 1,400 students that are identified as a student with a disability in our district. It's about 17% of our population. We have 5 students who are in a residential setting, which is the most restrictive placement. Out of the, so as you look down at some of these numbers, we have 113 that we actually are in BOCES special education programs. So again, we're just sticking with special ed that are attending special education programs. 52 of them are in their severely emotionally disabled programs. 50 students are attending autistic programs, and 11 students are attending what we consider life skill programs. So right now, back in when I first started, the majority of our students presented more on the autism spectrum, but now you're seeing that our severely emotionally disabled population has significantly increased. So as you look at these numbers, that's something to kind of look at. That's where we've seen a significant increase in our referrals to the BOCES programs. Sure, please.
And we have 4 programs here from BOCES that are in our district.
Yeah.
Carl W. Siley, Bear Road. Give me a chance here. I can't remember the other school. Oh, it's Lakeshore Elementary, and 2 at the high school.
Yeah.
My question is, and a lot of these are autistic students. How many of our students are in this program? I know they come from where else, but how many of our North Syracuse students are in these programs right here in our district with through BOCES?
So I can tell you that the Lakeshore program was opened up for all of our students. So,
Wow.
yeah, so that's why they created that, because the number of referrals that we received from preschool to school age warranted a new classroom. So we are fortunate that we have the space, and we are fortunate that we have the leadership that says, absolutely, we'll house these programs for our students. So that was fantastic. So, yep. So that wasn't even questionable. So that was great. So our leadership was like, absolutely, let's work to see. So we have the Lakeshore program. The Bear Road is 50% of them are North Syracuse students. And then at the high school, the original classroom that was there was predominantly our students, but due to graduation and aging out, that has kind of rotated through. And then the second classroom that was at the junior high that is now there, 50% is our students. Yep. And then just to finish up, we just kind of like to tell you guys what we've been doing since June, where we've been. So Karen Williams, before she left, she worked with the elementary staff, and they were asking for some progress monitoring. So we teamed up with Greg Stone with the elementary, and we purchased some really great reading for the special education teachers. We're also doing the unique curriculum with our 15-to-1 special class teachers. We're also getting the training with the Amplify CKLA. So we're doing a lot of work with ELA in special education. We were able to hire a social worker specifically to be embedded in our 811 program at Allen Road, which we've never had before. That kind of mimics the BOCES program, which is nice. And then we've done a lot of workshops on the CERT process, TCIS, behavior modifications, supports and interventions. So we've gotten kind of busy in our office throughout the year. So with that, do you guys have any questions or concerns? All right.
Sure.
I'm involved either in teaching or in this district for 51 years. And I've seen this program grow. I've seen the strength of classroom teachers, principals, and Kathy Wheeler gave me the honor of having one of these classes my last year. And I was so glad I had it my last year because I learned so much. Dan knows that other districts envy our special ed program. It is one of the best.
Thank you. I say it all the time. I've got we have the best working staff. We really do. They're here for kids. And I put that up to anybody. They are so child-centered that I put up our staff in this department, like K-12, pre-K-12, you name it. They are here for kids, and you can see it, and they wear it on their hearts. You can see it. So thank you for recognizing that. I really appreciate that. Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to have two BPT presentations tonight, but as a prelude to that, Mr. Stone has agreed to give us a little primer on what we'll be seeing in our BPT presentations this year.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. I did not create a presentation on purpose. I'm going to be very short and sweet so I can turn it over to the actual buildings, but I did want to update the board and community on some changes that have been going on over the past couple of years as we really tweak these presentations to make them really relevant, meaningful, and timely to the board. So a couple of things you'll note as some changes this year. We have aligned all presentations to our new strategic plan. So you're going to see a focus on three key areas tied to the strategic plan: graduation rate, reading proficiency, and emotional competency. So you're going to see goals aligned to that. From an elementary perspective, when you're thinking graduation rate, you're going to see how the elementary schools directly impact and measure that. And it can look differently at an elementary school, possibly focusing on chronic absenteeism or social emotional learning. And so you'll see that in the presentations. Just a few other things. The buildings were all tasked to align to those strategic plan goals. And the framework, hopefully what you see now in these presentations is a very consistent framework, allowing buildings to be flexible and creative in their presentations, but also giving the board and the community a very clear understanding of building to building the same process and model, same data sets, so that you're able to compare apples to apples. A few other quick notes. You're going to start seeing a lot more focus on data. So you're going to see a lot of Ames Web, BIMAS, and now that we're getting state assessments back in, so we can look at multiple data sets to tell us how our students are actually performing. We have moved these presentations obviously to the fall. That's a big change for us, and that was intentional. This way here, the board and community can see the data from last school year. So each building is going to come up here. They're going to present their data from last year so you can see how we performed, and then setting the goals for this year moving forward and the strategies they're going to use this school year. So it's a more natural progression as opposed to reporting out mid-year. You'll be able to see things in kind of more real time. In addition to that, the board has been provided really more of a streamlined big picture overview for these presentations, but also we want to make sure that all of you received a more micro detailed analysis. And so all of you were given access to a document on Friday that outlines each of the buildings. So you can really break it down by grade level and specifically see ELA and math and the goals as well as the progress over the last school year. So that'll allow you a chance to break it down further if you're interested to, but the presentations will be more big picture whole school, giving you kind of best of both worlds. Finally, each building set all of their goals to a SMART goal process, which is just giving everyone a very opportunity to present school goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So hopefully they're really focused for you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the first one, I believe, is Lindsay Maloney. Does anyone have any questions before we turn it over to the buildings? Okay.
Thank you.
There we go. There we go. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Maloney. I'm the building principal at Smith Road.
And I'm Jessica McCurdy and I teach third grade.
And she's also our building chair. I'm going to start off with just kind of a general overview of Smith Road. So we are at approximately 562 students. That does change daily. We have kids exiting and entering almost daily. That's about a decrease of about 17 students from last year. We have about 100 staff in the building. There are 28 classrooms, and we have got 8, let me see, can't count. 7 of those are CTD classrooms. So those are our consultant teacher classrooms. We also have 3 of the special class, which Val was just talking to about. We have 3 of the 15-to-1 classrooms, and that is about 40 students, and with an increase of 3 students from last year's program. We also have the ENL program at Smith Road, and we have approximately 51 English language learners, which is a decrease of 8 students. And I know, we made that switch last year where we sent some of our L's to Rocks Elementary. So you would kind of expect that the decrease would be a little greater, but we had an increase of students coming in, moving into the district. So really with that move to Rocks L, it's still really ended up with a decrease of 8, which helped us because I can't imagine had we not sent some, how we would have managed, to fit all of our L's within our programs at Smith Road. We're about 49.6 free and reduced. We are a Title I building, and our transient numbers from last year, we had 88 students coming in and 79 students going out last year. So that's just a little overview. This is our mission and our vision, something that we anchor to in everything that we do within the building. All of our committees, all of our team meetings, we anchor to our mission and vision. This mission and vision is about, I would say, 4 years old. So this is what we stand for, and this is what we are working towards.
So we've been working hard aligning our building goals to the updated 5-year strategic plan. Our first goal is graduation rate, and at the elementary level, we were brainstorming ideas of what we can do, and we are going to work on our chronic absenteeism. In 2022, our chronic absenteeism rate was 27.9%. So our goal this year would be to reduce that to 18% by June of 2023. We'll be using school tool data to pull absences. And some of our strategies will be, we have an attendance committee that meets monthly, and we brainstorm proactive interventions that we can use with students and share with classroom teachers. And we gather feedback from our teams and support staff. We also have a biweekly attendance check. Our attendance aides and the school counselors meet, and they look at students on a one-by-one basis just to see if they can reach out to families right away and find out if they can help. So we also use a tier support system within the building. So we know that we start with our classroom teachers. We reach out to families and the students. Then we reach out to counselors, and then finally our principal. We also have a mentor program at Smith Road that we started where we pair up at-risk kids, and we try to build connections with them and do fun things. And also this year, we're going to start reaching out to families as well. The last thing is we're working on a teacher postcard, something positive that when we notice kids are absent, we can send home just to tell them that we miss them, and we make a positive interaction rather than just send a letter home.
So the next goal, aligning to the strategic action plan, is the reading proficiency. So Smith Road's goal is to increase the number of students reading proficiently. So you can see here with the data in fall of 21, we had 30.6. This is building wide too. 30.6% of our students were proficient. By the spring, we had 45% of our students showing proficiency, and our goal this year is going to be 49%. And some of the things that we're going to do, you can see our SMART goal there, increasing from 45 to 49. We're going to be using the Ames Web Plus, the composite reading scores, which is what we use to show you the data there. Some strategies we're going to do is, well, actually, I should really say one strategy. We really are focusing this year on using our collaborative team time to focus on the first two guiding questions of a true professional learning community. So we at Smith Road, we are a professional learning community, and our teams meet weekly for collaborative team time for 50 minutes. And we decided as a building, now that we have the CKLA curriculum, that we really have to get a handle on the first two questions, which is, what do we want our students to learn, and how are we going to know if they're going to learn it? So we're really taking that collaborative team time to learn the curriculum, learn from each other, and really ensure that we have a guaranteed and viable curriculum for our students. Then naturally with that, the teams will be talking about assessment, because as they're digging into the curriculum, those assessments are going to come up. They're going to be talking about those assessments. They're going to be analyzing the data. So really this year, we decided we kind of have to go slow to go fast. We got to really take the time to know what we want the students to learn. And then once we're there, we can start asking those other two questions, which are, what are we going to do if they don't know it? And what are we going to do if they do know it? So that's really our primary focus. And we started this week. Our teams are coming together, and they're bringing their manuals, and they're digging in, and they're learning from each other. So that is going to be our strategy this year for reading proficiency.
So our third goal is emotional competency. This data you're seeing here has been taken from the BIMAS screener. So these are the SEL core competencies, and this is a report from 2022 in the spring, right? So after looking at the data, we determined that 30% of Smith Road students are in the concern or the high risk, so the yellow or the red, in self-awareness. And so as a building, we really want to see that green grow. So Smith Road's goal this year is to increase students' self-awareness skills from 70% to 75% by the end of the spring screener, which is in May. We decided to focus on quality over quantity this year. So rather than focus on all 5 competencies, we'd really like to focus on the one that we see our students need the most, which is self-awareness. So how are we going to do that? We are going to have a building-wide focus on self-awareness. Some of our teachers have chosen to teach the second step curriculum, and some are doing the zones of regulation, which are both ways of helping kids identify with their emotions and be able to talk about what they can do with them. And as a building, we'll focus on self-awareness at our assemblies and on our morning shark show. And also at staff meetings, there'll be parts centered around self-awareness for our staff as well.
And moving to our math goal. So we are Smith Road, we are going to increase our student math proficiency. So again, looking at the fall, 30.2% proficient, spring 47.6%, and our goal is 52.6% for this year. And we are going to again use the Ames Web numeracy tiered transition report to measure. And the strategies, we're going to continue to implement the Into Math program. We are going to use the common assessments, more of a focus on the checks for understanding and teachers using those for reteach, pulling small group, and also providing tier 2 and tier 3 math support within our AIS department. So those are some strategies that we're going to do to focus on math.
So this is our first normal year in what seems like a very long time. Most of our restrictions have been lifted, so we were able to kick off the year with our back to school barbecue. We held open house in person this year, and for some of our families in 3rd grade, even that was the first one they were able to come to. We had 350 parents attend the 3rd and 4th grade open house, and 450 attending the K2. So we had a lot of families. We celebrated our students who completed their summer reading projects. We participated in the Chalk the Walk. We decorated our sidewalks with positive and uplifting messages. We have a new school resource officer who the kids are, they really like, Officer Jim. He's already building relationships with our kids. He's visiting our classrooms and talking about school safety. We have our first outdoor assembly on Wednesday, so we can kick off our self-awareness. And let's see, we have a walkathon coming up. We are doing Socktober. We are collecting socks for the homeless. Overall, we want to focus building relationships this year in our building between students and staff. We even have a staff kickball team, which I'm not on. That would be bad. And finally, we are in the process of securing contractors to install our new playground. So we are hoping that will happen this year.
So just to give you a quick, we actually were ready to start building. All of this equipment is actually sitting in our parking lot, just waiting for contractors to get in there and start building. I'm not sure, hoping for sometime soon. But I just wanted to play a quick 15-second video because this is really exciting. This has been years of work to try to get this. We're going to have an early primary and an upper primary playground. So it's pretty exciting what we will have in a very short time.
Miracle.
So as you can see, we don't have to go through the whole thing, but as you can see, one of the things that we're really excited about is that we really wanted to ensure that this was an all-inclusive playground with our special programs, and it's really difficult for a lot of our students to be able to play and have fun on our current playground. So we really wanted to make sure it was all-inclusive, which is why you see this, the type of the ground floor there so that wheelchairs accessible. As well as a lot of that equipment is also wheelchair accessible. One thing you saw, the sensory path, we currently had to cut that out due to obviously prices went up when we originally, so we had to cut the sensory path out. However, that is what we are focusing on this year is our fundraising so that we can get that sensory path put in between the two playgrounds. And those are our BPT members that work very hard on all of this. And does anyone have any questions?
I got just one quick one, just the chronic absenteeism. What's the number for a specific student to hit before you consider them chronically absent?
It's 10%. So from the
10%.
day that they're enrolled. So yeah, for 180 days, it would be 18. So and that's one thing we switched to. We used to have letters that would indicate 5 days, 10 days. We've switched to more of a percentage now because 5 days in, October is different than 5 days in May. So we now look at the percentage.
Okay, thank you. Questions? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and we have Cicero Elementary, Mrs. Wheeler and her crew.
Good evening. Oh, no, never mind. Thank you all for inviting us here tonight. We're really excited to share with you our goals for this school year. This is not quite where we wanted to start. Here we go. So I'm Kathy Wheeler. I'm the building principal. I'm Tina Perno. I'm a 4th grade teacher. I'm Melissa Dickens. I'm a 1st grade teacher. And I'm Cindy Kanata, an AIS teacher. Also tonight with us in our peanut gallery, as they wanted to refer to themselves, is Renee Merritt, John Carilla, and Brittany Herlosky Gilbert. Also Michelle Henderson, who is our instructional coach, and they're here to support us. So just a quick look at where we were last year and this year. It's not that much of a difference. We did, as Lindsay was saying, our ENL population has been growing, so we've grown a few students there. We don't have this year's free and reduced or this year's transients, but you can see last year where we were. I imagine it's going to be pretty similar to that. Our mission and vision, we decided this year that we were going to adopt the district's mission and vision from the strategic plan. So it's not that much different from what our mission and vision were in the past, but we decided that since we're all working on the same thing and our BPT goals are aligned to the strategic plan, we also have adopted that mission and that vision. So if that looks familiar to you, that's why.
So our first strategic plan goal is focused around graduation rate. As you know, good attendance is essential for success, and it's going to help to increase graduation rates as well as reading proficiency and social emotional skills. So our goal is to increase our attendance rate from 94% to 96% this year. And some of the things that we plan to do, we used at the beginning of the year, the district-wide attendance flyer. This is what I was bringing up. Letting families know how attendance matters to us and how their children's attendance matters to us. We also do send letters to parents. We have a postcard, We Missed You postcard that is given to students when they are out, letting them know that we did miss them and we're happy to have them back in school. Right there, just click there. We do make phone calls to chronically absent students, offering assistance to the families if needed. Report card comments, there are comments made on the report cards regarding attendance. And we do discuss our school tool attendance reports at our collaborative team meetings. Though we usually do those during data time when we discuss those. So our measurement tool is going to be school tool attendance, and we feel that all of our goals and strategies at the elementary will help to improve the graduation rate overall.
For our second goal, we're working on our reading proficiency. We know that that is also successful to increase the graduation rate and the social emotional skills for the students. We're looking to increase the percentage of students scoring in the tier 1 bracket on our tier program for a reading composite from 61 to 68%. And again, that is a building average. So as you can see in fall, we were at 42.4% in the tier 1. Spring, we were 61.2, and our goal for spring of 2023 is going to be 68% in that tier 1. So as a building, the new CKLA program is being integrated into all the classrooms. During our collaborative team meeting times, we're discussing strategies and ways to implement that into our classrooms. That's K4. And then the Hegarty program is being used consistently through our kindergarten through 2nd grade classrooms. Again, using the CKLA assessments helps keep our our school consistent and the Ames web data consistent. So we are able to compare students no matter what class they're in at our team meetings within the grade level. That helps us when we're trying to determine tier 2 and tier 3 students, especially when we're doing win across the classrooms. It's really nice to be able to, at those team meetings, talk about all of the grade level students. And also we're going to be using our MTSS and our school support team to provide interventions and supports for all of the students. We progress monitor and we make adjustments as needed. So through interventions and through that win time and with our collaborative team meeting, we are always adjusting as needed.
So our third goal is our emotional competency, social emotional learning goal. And we took a look at our BIMAS data and discovered a need to increase student self-management competency. And our goal is to increase that from 82% to 90% this year. Some of the ways that we intend to do this and reach our goal is by using consistent monitoring, using the BIMAS data and helping use that information to inform all of the staff that works with each of the students. Some of our staff, 4 of our staff members have been trained in the ruler program, and we are in the primary stages of becoming a ruler school. And we're working on this at a staff level to understand how we want to feel at school, how we behave at school. And then from there, there's a progression that
we will roll out to the students. So once we as a staff have sufficiently reached our ruler understanding and use of those strategies, then we will implement that with our students at a later date. So we're hoping that the learning that our staff has from that will also help our self-management, and that will reflect in our students as well. One of the big things that we've been working on for our SEL goal, our character ed team this summer met and created basically an SEL curriculum and behavior expectation for our building. And this acronym is SOAR. And it is basically what we've done is we have taken a look at a student's day, and we have compartmentalized the day and what ideal behaviors expectations are from the time they set foot on the bus all the way through until they get back on the bus. All of the different areas that students interact with each other, with staff, and regulate themselves. So we've given them these expectations from voice level to what it looks like. And the SOAR acronym stands for safety first, offer respect, acts of kindness, responsibility, and teamwork. And we kind of took a play on Chipper soaring to meet these behavior expectations. And we're explicitly teaching these. We also got together, and are we playing this right now?
Sure.
Okay. So we go, wait, let me just intro. Yeah. Yeah. So we got together over the summer, and we focused heavily on the behaviors that we asked the bus drivers, we asked the ladies in the cafeteria, we polled each other within our classrooms. What are some behaviors that we really need to focus on? Where do these kiddos need some support, need some role modeling? So we are explicitly teaching the expectations using, we rolled this out on our Chipper morning show. So a lot of staff participation in this, and the teachers were kind of modeling what not to look like, and Chipper was the one that was soaring. So this is just our bus level.
Like you.
This was our bus expectation. Mhm.
Hey, what are you doing? Yeah.
So the premise of this is to kind of show the kids what they shouldn't do. And Chipper was role modeling, and it was a teaching tool for the teachers. This was a small snippet on every morning when we came back to school, and the teachers used it to drive their instruction and conversations with the students. The students looked for things within the video that, weren't ideal, and how they could do a better job. And we all, along with that, we did some very direct teaching models and lessons that aligned with SOAR throughout the first few weeks of school. Another part of our work this summer, as a result, we came up with a consistent behavior reflection for each student that was really modeled after a restorative classroom model, so that students and teachers had conversations surrounding their behavior, and we bring it back to our expectations from SOAR. So this also gives us data to discuss at our collaborative team meetings, so that we can look at the MTSS standards and see where we are in terms of our tier interventions to really kind of help students achieve their SEL goals for the year.
And for our math goal, also proficiency in math is also essential for graduation rates and social emotional skills. We're going to increase the percentage of students again scoring in the tier 1 bracket for the math composite score from 70% to 76. In the fall of 2021, we were at 42.6% in tier 1. Spring, we were at 70.2, and in the spring of 2023, we hope to be at 76% in the tier 1 bracket. So classroom teachers are utilizing the Into the Math program, and that's consistent through K-4. We're also utilizing the assessments that are consistent through the program and the Ames Web benchmark data to determine tier 2 and tier 3 students for interventions. And again, during our collaborative team meeting time, we are able to discuss students as a grade level instead of by class to determine what their needs are and to adjust as necessary. We're also going to be using the MTSS and our school support team again to help provide those interventions, to provide suggestions, and to support all of the staff who in turn support the students. And of course, we're going to progress monitor those students receiving tier 2 and tier 3 interventions to make sure that they're achieving them. And if they're not achieving their goals, we will adjust accordingly and progress monitor and revisit until we've reached our goals.
Before I open it up to questions, I'll just show a couple of pictures from our back to school barbecue, our chalk the walk. This is from open house, the 4th grade teachers at the first open house we've had in a while. Here's some more from our back to school barbecue. If you ever drive down Route 31 on the first Friday of school, or come to it like that. So just some of the fun things we've done since school started. And this is our building planning team, who is very committed. It's really a great team. Any questions?
Just a comment on both of them. Great job. And I want to thank Mr. Stone. One thing, and I know when Mary was a school board member, we always saw the low scores in the beginning of the year. And we never saw the scores in the spring. And what I'm seeing from both schools, magnificent work that you did last year from the fall to the spring. So our children are learning even during COVID. They learned. But the program I'm really excited about is your ruler program. I talked to Lisa Goldberg quite a bit, and she was excited that Kathy volunteered and your teachers volunteered to do this program. So I'm anxious to see how where it lands in another 2 or 3 years. Thanks for doing that.
Are learning it too for ourselves, for self-awareness. That's where we're at. And it's amazing what we're learning about ourselves in turn to help the students.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the data. I don't recall it being presented as in the past as a building average on the composite scores, and it just makes a lot more sense to me that way. So thank you. Okay, we're at the public participation point in the meeting, and we have a speaker this evening. Just to review quickly our protocol, I mean, we absolutely want to hear from the public. It's a best practice recognized across the state, and we participate in that. Here in North Syracuse, we have 30 minutes total dedicated, 3 minutes per speaker. So we have one speaker this evening. So I'll remind you that it's a 3-minute time, and what I'd like you to do, and you may come up and use a microphone here. And anything, if you want to leave us something in writing, please do, and the district clerk will make sure the board receives that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll make it brief then. Good evening. My name is Mystica Armstrong. Thank you for giving me your time and attention and space to be heard this evening. Also, thank you to all of you for what you do for our children. Many of you have very challenging jobs at hand, and it cannot possibly be easy. So thank you to all of you. I am here because just as you, I care. I am a mother of 3 in this school district, one of which has already gone to graduate from Oswego. And I have 2 left in the school district. I am also a New York licensed social worker and also a veteran of the United States Army. And I tell you that because I want you to know that I'm invested not only in my own children, but in my community. I believe in healthy conversations and appropriate advocacy, and I hope to convey that in what I'm saying. With that being said, I have some questions and some concerns. My concerns and questions pertain to your student dress code as noted on your website. The concerns I've raised in the past, which I've raised to the schools and used the chain of command, it was directed back to me that I was advised that these were not in violation of the dress code as stated in your policy. It states, as students develop their identities, they often use clothing as a way to express themselves. Students' dress code should contribute toward a safe, comfortable, and inclusive learning experience. My first question is, when you talk about safe, does that include emotional safety? In serving the community in the area of mental health, I'm finding that some students do not feel safe at times, emotionally safe. Additionally, they don't always feel safe coming forward to their teachers and administration with their fears. For example, if they notice a teacher is allowing a sort of dress that they are afraid of or is distracting day after day, then they might ask themselves, is there something wrong with the way I think or the way I perceive? Or will anyone actually care? Or is that just a waste of my time? And they may not say anything. So thankfully, they have their parents, and sometimes we have to advocate for them. My second question is, what are the teachers doing in the beginning of the year to present a safe space for doing that? And I do plan to ask those questions of the teachers. If in fact a student does feel distracted, does that necessarily mean the student causing the distraction will be asked to stop wearing X, Y, or Z? Or will the distracted student be asked to learn more tolerance? What is the process? My next question is, what is the boundary? How are you? I was almost done.
Please just finish that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's almost done. What is the boundary? How are you measuring what creates or disrupts a safe learning environment as stated in your dress code? My next question is, since the dress code allows for some gray areas, would you be willing to clarify what the rules are pertaining to expressing political affiliation, religious beliefs, or is that included in identity? I'm not sure if you can just clarify. I ask that because I am getting feedback in the community that these agendas seem to be being pushed on students through what other students are wearing. And it can be offensive, scary, and/or distracting. Lastly, where is the balance between safety and tolerance around expressing their identity? It's just something to think about. And could these ways of expressing identity through attire possibly infringe on the goal of setting up our youth for successful jobs and relationships in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. And by all means, please submit something in writing. We can all get that and look
Sure.
at it again. Thank you.
Yeah, I did prepare for this a little quickly. I heard about it on Friday. So I'll take my chicken scratch and type it up and if that's okay, and submit it after.
Yes, and you're always welcome to come back and
Thank you.
communicate more.
Okay, appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're at our Board of Education Committee reports. And I will start with the Policy Committee and Mr. Thorne.
Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
We had our first policy committee meeting of the school year this past Tuesday, which resulted in the addition of 6 policies to tonight's agenda for the board approval. The next meeting will be held on October 11th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I know we haven't met with legislative yet, but we have a date. I know, we saw that in the email today. It wasn't. But I'll let you
Yes,
tell
we'll
me.
be meeting on October 5th.
Okay,
I'll go right into my BOCES thing for you. How about that?
all right, go ahead.
We had a BOCES, OCM BOCES meeting on September 15th, 2022, and you should have received my notes along with the agenda. Our CTE program, 1,450 students out of the school districts. That is up 12.8%. And I believe the year before it was up 10. So OCM BOCES, welding, cosmetology is up over 20% in the last 2 years. Thank you, North Syracuse, because you send the most students. Our special ed program started the year out with 593 students. Many of those students are at Crown Road. Many of those students are at Cortlandville. And as you heard tonight, we have 4 classes right here in North Syracuse. We had 86 new staff, similar to what North Syracuse had. We had a new staff orientation at the main campus. Michael was there on August 29th. And then our opening day with over 600 staff was at Ramada Inn, which was an excellent program. Jason, I gotta tell you, we still have 10 openings we're looking for, and we're out there recruiting like you are. The virtual academy, which we have students, Dan gives us that on Fridays. We have 62 students in the program. I am really excited that Suzanne Slack, I don't know if Don knows her personally, will be our new assistant superintendent for administrative services. She is coming from the city school district as the leading CEO, finance person. So I think we're going to be in good hands. A former North Syracuse teacher, 7th grade teacher at Gillette, is now our new administrator at Stars. Don will be getting to know new people because Lafayette, Tully, JD, and FM all have new business officials. And I remember last year there were quite a few. So, and my last thing I wanted to say that OCM BOCES will be having our own retreat this Saturday morning. And also there are 2 superintendent searches going on. Tully is nearing the end, and then Marathon. Any questions about anything with OCM BOCES? Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent comments, Mr. Bowles.
Thank you. Let's start off by saying that this Wednesday, we do have a half day of school, just as a reminder to parents out there. This past Friday night, CNS football team beat Beeville 41-19. So impressive win. Today we had a visitor in Al Sturpey at Carl W. Siley Bear Road Elementary School. He had given money for the playground and some furniture, and we wanted to just show our appreciation. So he was thrilled and in awe. He was very impressed. Our field hockey team is 6-0. They are really doing extremely well with that. And to match that, our boys volleyball is also 6-0. Girls cross country beat FM this past weekend. The last time that's happened was 2004. FM has been a dominant force, but we really have some outstanding athletes. And we were led by Kate Putman, who I found out is going to the University of North Carolina State on full scholarship. So we do have some impressive athletes and things going on here, and that's all for now.
Okay, thank you. Board of Ed comments, just a couple housekeeping things before anybody else comments if they do, and that is I sent the survey out for our board self-evaluation. We're going to look at for the retreat. If you have any issue with that, let me know. Questions 20 and 21, Mr. Crabtree kindly pointed out to me, they're a repeat of the same question. And question 23, this was derived from a BOCES survey or form. So 23 is not applicable. So You have to answer it, so I would recommend you just make it outstanding because it won't mess up our pie graphs. So, but that's up to you. So if you have any questions on that, let me know, or Mike. Anything else?
That dance report, and that's the marching band. The CNS marching band had their home show last week, which is probably the largest home show in New York State, other than the final one at the Dome. And usually the home team, the home band, doesn't participate. They get an exhibition score, but they did, and they won. And the other thing was they had the alumni band there, and the alumni band went through each years, decades. They went through the 70s, the 80s and 90s. And again, I've been around here a long time. So I do remember the North Syracuse Northmen, and I do remember the Golden Eagles, marching and so forth. And the superintendent of West Genesee, who was a drum major for us, the very first drum major for the CNS high school, was the drum major. It was awesome. And they went on this week over to Beeville, and they're continuing to win. They have the highest score in New York State. As you know, there are 3 or 4 band shows going on. Right now, they have the highest score in the state, but they still got a month to go. It's just like sports. It's great to have good sports, but it's also our music program.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members? All right, I'm going to move on then to routine action items. Look for a motion for the consideration approval of the minutes of the September 12th board meeting. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Ms. Agru. They're in front of you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Motion please to place B, C, and D together before us. Motion from Mr. Moody Woosick, second from Mr. Thorne. We have those before us, are the classification of disabled students for in school, for preschool, and for home instruction from the various committees. That's before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Those items are carried. Acknowledgement of business office reports. E, motion please place that before us. Motion from Ms. Agru, second from Mr. Marizio. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Discussion action items. A is the designated scoreboard sponsorship. A motion place that before us, please. Motion from Mr. Marizio, second from Mr. Thorne. Any discussion there?
Yeah. Are
Okay.
these scoreboard sponsorships, maybe Don knows the answer, going towards a new scoreboard, or are these just
Well, it's advertising on the.
Advertising on the
I'm
scoreboard.
sorry, it's sponsorship on the existing scoreboard.
what's the existing one?
It's to support the existing scoreboard. And as you know, there's ongoing expenses associated with that board.
That started with fundraising for the new board though, right? The sponsorship program started
For
when
the-
we
for
were
the
funding
new-
for a new scoreboard.
For the new
so
scoreboard, I'm not familiar with,
I believe it
I'm not
did, and then we just kept
Okay.
it going. So
Is there a limit to how many sponsors you could have on the scoreboard? Do we set a limit because there's only so much room on the board, right?
right, but I think there's some time binding around it, in terms of
Time binding.
how long someone sponsors for.
Okay.
We can get more information on that and put in the Friday letter, I guess.
Okay. So that is before us still. Do we have any further questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Items B, C, and C together, please. If I get a motion, put those together. Motion from Mr. Marizio, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. We have the creation of the 0.6 FTE special ed and 0.4 FTE physical ed. To explain to us in the memo. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and those items are carried. Resolution for the capital reserve. This is a roll call vote. If I get a motion, place that before us. Motion, Mr. Marizio, second from Mr. Thorne. Okay, that is before us, and it's kind of nice that it goes with our audit because they referenced our fund balance, so we'll be moving some of that capital reserve. So, yes. Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay, thank you. That was carried unanimously. I get a motion to place items E and F before us. Motion, Mr. Marizio, second from Mr. Herman. Okay, before us, we have the acceptance of the independent audit report that you saw this evening that was presented to us. You have copies of as along with the active action plan for management that is attached here in the agenda. So we have both those items before us. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
I just a comment to Don Keegan and his business office and Vince. This is not easy work. And thank you for all you do. It has to be done every year. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor, opposed, and those two items are carried. Thank you. And item G, acknowledgement of appointment of an impartial hearing officer. Motion place that before us. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Grew. That is before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, opposed, and that is carried. Items H and I, I'd like to combine if I get a motion to do that. Motion, Mr. Moody Woosick, second from Ms. Segru. Gives the appointments of the lead evaluators, one's for principals, one's for the teachers. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Items are carried, H and I. Item J, please, a motion, place that before us. Motion from Mr. Marizio, second from Ms. Segru. The budget calendar is before us. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. We have our policies. I'd like to combine policies K, L, M, N, O, and P together. If I get a motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. Those are before us. Mr. Thorne mentioned that those are being brought to us today in the report. Do we have any questions about any of the policies? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and those are all carried. Thank you. And just an acknowledgement for retirements. We have one listed today. It is a teacher aide. It is Patricia Lukenbaugh, teacher aide retiring with 23 years of service. So I wish her a happy and healthy and long retirement. Thank you. And personnel report A, a motion, please place that before us. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Marizio. Any discussion on A? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Support staff personnel B, motion to place that before us. Motion from Mr. Grew, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. That is before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And administrative personnel report. Motion to place that before us from Mr. Marizio, second from Mr. Herman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that item is carried. At this time, we do not have a request for an executive session. If there's a board member that has a request for one and like to state the reason, they could do so now. Okay, if not, then I'm going to look for a motion for adjournment. Motion from Mr. Marizio, second from Mr. Thorne. Any discussion about adjournment? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. We are adjourned. 7:34. Thank you. Yes, we meet again next Monday. Oh.